founder and CEO of Students First, and the former chancellor of DC Public Schools, Michelle Reed. Director of the film Won't Back Down, Daniel Barnes. And the film's producer, Mark Johnson.
We sit at one of those ends.
Okay, we have a few more people filing in, I think. Did you like the movie?
Yeah.
Did you cry as much as I cried when I saw it? Yes, multiple times. Daniel, it was all you, capturing that emotion. Welcome, everybody. Before we get started, I just want to say a few thank yous to the people and organizations that have made this possible. First, our deepest appreciation to Walton Media and 20th Century Fox for producing this movie and letting us screen it here. It is really an extraordinary and necessary film for these times. Sponsors today, Students First, of course, and the Foundation for Excellence in Education for their support and leadership in the fight to give our children a better future. We are here today, I think all of us, because we share the same concern, and that is the education of America's children. And it is what guides the mission of all of the people on this panel, that every child, regardless of their race, their zip code, their financial means, has access to the best education possible. And just to tee up this conversation, I want to throw out a couple of statistics to get us started. It's not going to come as a surprise, I think, to anyone, but at present America, as we all know, is barely competing. We are 17th in science, 25th in math out of 34 industrialized nations. Currently, almost 800 students drop out of school every hour of every day, and over 1 million students fail to graduate every single year. This is not a partisan concern, this is an American concern. And with that in mind, I'm very pleased to tell you that we will be screening this film and holding a similar panel in Charlotte at the Democratic National Convention next week. Where we will also have some prominent Democrats talking about their commitment to education reform. Among them, I know, is Sacramento Mayor Kevin Johnson, who's with us today as well, so we appreciate you being here. I just finally want to mention that Dr. Condoleezza Rice was supposed to be with us, but due to all this crazy weather and last-minute changes in schedule, she was not able to make it, so we are sorry to miss Dr. Rice today, but we are more than thrilled to be sitting, I'm more than thrilled to be sitting with these four individuals, Governor Bush, former Chancellor of DC Schools, Michelle Reed, Daniel Barnes, and Mark Johnson. Really appreciate you guys being here. So let me start with Daniel and Mark and talk about the film. Everybody's still kind of recovering. It took me a few minutes after I saw it. I just kind of had to sit there. It's very emotional. It affected me deeply as a mother of two small children. What did you want people to take away from this film, Daniel?
Well, the film originally, came about because I care so much about education. My parents are both teachers. My grandmother taught 7th grade English in Brooklyn for 30 years, 1930, 1960. My mother-in-law created the first alternative public middle school in New York City. She's still the principal of it today at 80. So education is so much a part of my family, it's a part of my blood. I'm also a real sucker for David and Goliath stories. I'm the geeky guy who cried at movies, so I put those two things together and tried to create this film that was about the possibility of creating change within our schools. And what I really wanted to emphasize in the film was the way that people could work together, the way that parents and teachers could come together and prioritize the children. I think people are interested in who the Goliaths are in this movie. I'm much more interested in the Davids and in telling the stories of parents and teachers who can come together to create change.
And Mark, for you, what drew you to it?
Well, when we were making the movie, we used a couple of other films, Aaron Brockovich and Norma Ray, as models, and just wanted to posit the problem, and it's a very real problem in America, and then find a way with these fictional characters, a way to attack it, and together solve it. And I think that these two very disparate women coming together and attacking this problem the way they do is, I think, that represent some of the best of the kinds of movies that I loved going to as a kid and as an adult, and really wanted to make, as much as anything, more than anything, not a political tract in any way, but make a movie about characters we really cared about who triumphed in a very real and possible way.
Daniel, right after I saw it, I wanted to know how much was true, or how much was, as you say at the beginning, inspired by real events. What real events did inspire you, and what is recognizable in the film?
It's an interesting question. I mean, what we did is we sort of pulled together so many different kinds of stories and characters and creating these, and really tried to channel a kind of a fundamental truth about, parents who can't wait, because their child is in school and they're failing and they need to turn it around immediately. And so what we wanted to do was sort of take a whole series of different kinds of events, and we do them from newspaper articles and stories and so on. There was a LA Times piece about two teachers who were across the hall from each other, and what happened if you were the child who happened to end up in the classroom of the less successful teacher versus the successful one. And I was really captivated by that idea of sort of, the idea that it gets left to sort of a certain degree of chance. Same sort of with the lotteries. And so I really wanted to sort of humanize that drama. What has been interesting about the film is it has a sort of weird art imitates life, imitates art phenomenon, where some of the things that I was kind of imagining as I was writing the film and consulting with my, educator family, then started to actually happen. And so you would read headlines, 2 or 3 months down the road about events that were very similar to things that were happening in the film. And so, and I think that's one of the interesting things about the film. It's really coming out at a time where you're seeing this movement taking off, and so it can be a part of that conversation.
Did either of you expect to be walking into somewhat of a political firestorm by taking on this issue? I mean, you knew it was going to be controversial, or did you?
I don't think so. I had no idea. I certainly wouldn't expect it to have been here. I thought, as we say, the film, it's a piece of fiction. It obviously is, as we say, it's inspired by actual events, and it obviously deals with, a crisis in American education that we all are dealing with in one form or other. And so I thought it was much more obvious, and perhaps naively did not expect it to have created a little bit of a firestorm.
Bear in mind, though, I mean, in our Harvey Weinstein, they're popping champagne. I think it's a controversy, it's helpful in certain ways for the movie. But I think what we wanted to do also was, the one thing that is absolutely clear about the ed reform debate and movement, and I'm not going to pretend to know nearly as much as Michelle or Governor Bush, but it's a very divisive debate. And what we wanted to try to do was to create a piece of entertainment that could suggest a possibility of people kind of coming together. And I think that is, as you mentioned, the great thing about being able to screen the film here and in Charlotte. And that was absolutely the intent of the film, was to suggest that there's another kind of dialogue that can happen, and it's the way in which people can come together. And that is about putting the kids always at first. So when people ask me, is the film against this or that, I always say the film isn't anti-anything, it's pro-children.
So, let's talk a little more specifically about the problems and solutions. And Daniel and Mark, I know you say you're not an expert, but I know you have opinions on this, so feel free to jump in on some of this as well. And Governor Bush, let me start